Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Lina Tafana, and I want to explain periods in modern British English literature. There are 6 periods in modern British English literature. Number 1 is Renaissance literature. Characteristic of literature in this era were written between 1476 until 1660. It's about culture, art, science, and many more. Literary works mostly talk about individuality, death, and morality. Periodization of Renaissance. Number 1 is early Tudor literature, Elizabethan literature, Jacobean literature, Caroline literature, and literature of Commonwealth period. In this period, there are popular literary figure called William Shakespeare. He was a playwright and a sonnet writer. Shakespeare's plays are divided into 3 groups: tragedies, comedies, and histories. He was lived at Elizabethan era until Jacobean literature. And next, I want to explain neoclassic literature. Literature in this period was influenced by culture of ancient Greece or ancient Rome. Neoclassicism is characterized by the following: relying on logic and neglecting superstition or supernatural. Periodization of neoclassic literature. Number 1 is literature of Restoration period. Number 2, literature of Augustan. And number 3, literature of the Age of Johnson. Neoclassicism works were written in neoclassic period around 1660 until 1790. The first novel were written in this period. This prose fiction were written in this era. It was written by Daniel Defoe with his novel Robinson Crusoe and Moll Flanders. The term novel here refers to a literary genre written in prose with specific length and some other features, which distinguishes it from any other subgenre of prose fiction or prose in broader sense. Next, number 3 is Romantic literature. Romantic literature's work were written around 1790 until 1830. The characteristic of Romantic literature works are intensively illustrated stories about feeling, imagination, high emotion, natural emotion, and individuality. Poets was dominated the literary world in this period. There are another genre in this era. It's called Gothic fiction. It has some particular elements that make it so specific, include horror, death, gloom, fear, and romantic elements. It's written around 1790 until 1890. Number 4 is Victorian literature. The Victorian literature works were written around 1830 until 1901. Novel was very dominant in this period, and there are full of sentimental novel. I mostly talk about reality and social issues and inequalities. There are also realistic novel, also called realism. It was style or genre that tries to represent life as it really is. Realistic novels were focused on depicting reality within its stories. Realistic literature emerged as a more preferred genre with Charles Dickens becoming the best Victorian realistic novelist. Here are some Charles Dickens works: Barnaby Rudge, The Battle of Life, Bleak House, The Chimes, A Christmas Carol, and many more. Number 5. Modernist and War or Postmodern Literature. Modernist and war literature were written around 1901 until 1945. Mostly it talks about modernity, innovations, experimentations, post-war impacts, criticism towards modernity. Number 1. Modernist literature. It depicts modernity and its products such as the involvement of technology, new findings, as well as urban life and lifestyle in its work. Number 2. War literature. It was written around the war times. It talks about war-related things, most primarily the casualties. It is dark and unpleasant. The example of war literature is How to Kill by Kate Douglas. Next, number 6 is contemporary literature, which written around 1945 until now. Mostly it talks about multiculturalism. There are literature in contemporary era. Number 1 is dystopian novel in the first 25 years. It themes about dictatorship, life during a war, and international politics became famous, as written by George Orwell in Animal Farm and 1984. And number 2 is late modernism. Poems and plays dominated late modernist movement. Theater of absurd is one of the products of experimentation. And number 3 is postmodern literature. Postmodern literature is well known for the diversity of the literary genres, styles, schools, themes, as well as concepts, including the old and the new ones. The concepts are as follows: intertextuality, irony, paradox, maximalism, and many more. And number 4, migrant or post-colonial literature. This category consists of at least Black British literature and Asian British literature. And number 5 is other genres like spy fiction, science fiction, climate change fiction, fantasy fiction, historical fiction, and 21st century war literature. There are 6 periods in modern British English literature. That's all from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.